Welcome, viewers. This is Tex of the Black Pants Legion. Now, this is an interview. I've spoken with admins, hosts, developers, and other creatives behind Space Station 13 before, and they are notoriously antisocial types who generally don't like to talk with or at people for prolonged periods of time, as they are judge, jury, and executioner. And on a server, they can't be seen demonstrating favoritism, at least in theory. Anyways, here's how this works. I'm putting out an open call to any and all Space Station 13 admins on any public listed servers. This call is here, so answer it. If you're interested in answering or participating in an interview about Space Station 13, its history, and your server, please respond. See the description below for an email contact. I'll try to get to you and we can set something up. That being said, this is an interview for Space Station 13 with a Space Station 13 admin. The questions are largely freeform, and the discussion does not reflect exactly the policy of the server, unless stated otherwise by the person I'm interviewing. The reason I say this is I want to encourage an admin to be frank, honest, and open about their experiences without worrying that they're shitting on their server, or prevent them from being yelled at for representing the server in a bad way. This is a point of view and not, I repeat, not an absolute definition of doctrine on said server. That being said, I welcome our interviewee. Please, internet person, tell me your name you wish to go by, your server, and your admin rank.
Hey, so I'm BMC from Colonial Marines. I'm the head developer there, so I'm in charge of just general development, balancing the game, approving updates, managing the dev team in general.
So you're making sure that Marines die at an acceptable number.
Yeah, 75% win rate, of course, for Xenos, all that.
Damn. So
It's not true.
I know. So tell us about your server, its history, and what makes it unique.
So, server's been around for a long time. I only joined it 2 years ago, so I don't know the specifics other than what I've heard of the history. But I know that it was Colonial Marines for about 3 years, and before that, it was known by a different name that I, for some reason, can't remember right now. But and then APOP became the server head when there was some drama that happened and the old server head got booted out or something, and APOP became the server head and rebranded it as Colonial Marines. And then it just kind of went from there, and it started, I believe that's when the Sulaco was released as the ship map. And
that sounds very familiar. I remember the Sulaco well, cramped as she was.
Yep. And then our whole gameplay is, of course, focused around the Colonial Marines versus aliens, not the Alien, I don't want to say the Alien franchise, but it's definitely inspired by the comics, the games, and the movies and stuff like that. We have our own, exactly. We have our own lore and everything, and we kind of take a mix from all of the. We just pick and choose how our gameplay works based off of the entire universe. We don't look at one movie and say this is exactly how stuff works.
No, I understand. What you're saying is it's a fan product made as inspired by the universe at large, and not a gameplay designed around Aliens 2, Son of Aliens.
Exactly.
So, if you are addressing your general public, I ask the following question. Why should a player play on your station in particular? What makes it better or more interesting? What would you say to lure them in?
So, I wouldn't say that we're better than any of the servers. We're just different than any of the other servers. There are some servers coming up that are similar to ours nowadays, but we were kind of the first ones to do a big battlefield style war game almost. We completely changed the SS-13's mechanics over to be more focused on a team versus another team. So for the players that kind of like to roll, and we try to maintain a medium RP. I know that doesn't, some people will just say that doesn't exist and everything, which is fine, but we do kind of strive to cater to the people that like high role play, and then the people that like low role play, and try to just pick and choose between that. So
Well, right.
we
There's a difference between emote blank, emote breathe, and then a difference between ungadunga my attachments.
exactly. So I think we're one of the few servers that kind of, when it comes to role play at least, has a mix of the both as opposed to completely sticking to one of them.
I understand. So, what would you say is the most common thing that new players ask when they enter your server for the first time?
uh, Probably how do I shoot and how do the mechanics work and stuff like that. We don't really have the best UI, I guess, so it's not very I don't know, intuitive, the
Right.
mechanics. So it generally ends up with a mentor helping them out and sending them to the wiki and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've seen your mentors in action. My first round on Colonial Marines, there was a guy explaining how Space Station 13 worked, and then he said, "Your name seems very familiar."
Hmm.
So I have to ask, and I do ask this to many admins, why are you an admin on your server? And why did you decide to volunteer your time? And admin's time is extensive. It's many late nights, it's many hateful arguments, and it's a lot of stress. Why this server?
So I don't really know. I guess at first when I joined the game, I was just like, this is really fun and everything, and I saw that they had like applications become a developer on the server, and there's not a whole lot of servers that have that. But I also saw that they had it was closed source and everything,
Yeah.
which I kind of drew me in, and so that's when I kind of decided that I wanted to try to work on the game. And that was back when I was in college for computer engineering, so I was really interested in different programming languages and stuff like that. And I've always been interested in just game design in general, so I wanted to kind of get into that whole I don't know, world. And this kind of seemed like a stepping stone into that. And so when I was accepted, for a long time I was a mapper slash coder, and I mapped Ice Colony, which everybody hates. But
Thoroughly. We hate it thoroughly.
exactly. Ice is nice.
Oh my god, no.
Yeah. So you can blame me for that one. But and then I kind of just over time got more into coding than mapping, and as I learned the language more and stuff like that and got into it. And when N left, /N as the head dev, he recommended that I become the new head dev. And so that's kind of where I ended up going and becoming an actual admin, as opposed to just kind of somebody that just worked behind the scenes and everything.
So what would you say is the most challenging aspect of being an admin on your server? Every server has its own challenges, but with some of the people I've seen on there who don't understand rules in general or get very upset when they have to follow them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's definitely trying to be fair and trying to address everyone, because people will say that people that the developers in general don't talk to the players enough and stuff like that, or interact and everything. And so it's very difficult to be able to address just everybody and listen to them and listen to their concerns and try to be fair about, is the concern something that we should really look at, or is it something that maybe the player is just mad about at the time? It's very hard to find that balance, because nobody wants to be mean. At least anybody that I know on our server doesn't want to purposely be mean to people and stuff like that. And we do care about our players and stuff, obviously. So
right. I mean, you invest your time because you give a shit. You're not
exactly.
out there to wave an e-peen over someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So, what was your path to becoming an admin? Was it just curious mentorship at first?
So basically, explained before, I was just the mapper and coder for a while, a mapper and coder for a while, and then I guess I was one of the more active devs after a while. I was very inactive at first because I was it was a very busy semester for school, but I eventually became.
And you were feeling appropriate shame for designing ice.
That's right.
Right.
But yeah, then I started kind of becoming a little bit more active. I was pretty good at talking to people and communicating and stuff like that. Because a lot of the devs don't really want to deal with that kind of thing.
Well, yeah.
And so that's when /n was just like, I'm leaving and I'm going to nominate you as head dev or recommend that you're head dev. And it kind of just went from there. I mean, Apop and Raul and Fuey at the time, they all kind of agreed to it. And I just kind of got catapulted into a much higher position than I originally intended to be in. And at that point, it was kind of a responsibility to me. Like, I don't want to. The reason that I haven't left, even in like the worst times and stuff like that, is just because I feel responsible for the server and the community and the gameplay. I don't want to leave and then leave the server in a state where it won't thrive or something like that.
No, I understand what you're saying. You feel like this is now, well, part of you.
Yeah, it's like a little family and a little baby. the gameplay is a little baby that needs protecting.
Now,
horrible players sometimes.
Yeah, I have to. Aside from my normal questions, I have to ask, what is Ice inspired by, other than The Thing? I always have flashbacks of the first time I saw John Carpenter's The Thing when I do Ice.
So honestly, I didn't create the first version of Ice Colony. That was I can't remember. Infernus. His name was Infernus, and he was the original mapper of Ice Colony V1. Which everybody, if people think that they hate Ice Colony V2, they should see the original one because that one, it was much smaller. It had 2 elevators and like 4 ladders throughout the entire thing. So it basically ended up with the game was always like 4 hours long, and it was just a stalemate. And it was between like going down the ladders and up the ladders and stuff like that. It was just Marines sitting up top and Xeno sitting on the bottom. The first one to go up or the first one to go down generally lost.
So it wasn't like the current tank ladder snafu.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't at all. So when I created, the second one, the whole idea was just to kind of keep the general theme of the current Ice Colony, but expand the map and do something which we hadn't done before, because our only other active map at the time was LV, and it's fairly small. So we wanted to kind of try and make a big map, and so that's what I did.
So what would you say is the greatest challenge with Space Station 13 today, at least from the perspective of your server? Things are changing. This game is no longer the game du jour, as you may know, of neckbeard basement dwellers, but is now enjoying some limited success, I should say, in mid-tier YouTube land, and streams and what have you. So what would you say is the challenge today of Space Station 13, but from the perspective of your server?
I think it's probably accommodating the larger player base and everything. We get a whole lot more players than we used to. I mean, we are averaging like 250 players per game right now, basically, and that's crazy. So because of the limits of the engine, it's very hard to make the game run well, and also keep a lot of the cool mechanics. That's why we don't have really nice lighting like some servers have and stuff like that. We can't do it because of the limitations of the engine. And Well, unless we come up with something like super, super robust that is beyond our capabilities right now.
Well, I mean, what you guys managed to have 250 people playing a multiplayer game. I mean, fuck, EA can't do that. So do take some pride in it. You're doing better than a studio that has millions and millions and millions of dollars at their disposal. So here's an ever-present question with all Space Station 13 servers. Some will not answer this, some will say they don't exist, but I know they're everywhere. In fact, I found quite a few on your server. How do you deal with special snowflakes?
We crush them. Basically, we try not to cater to them at all. I don't want to. I used to play on base station based servers like so high role play and all that, and I still hated the super special snowflakes and stuff. Like I like high role play, but I don't like special snowflakes.
No one wants a Mary Sue.
Exactly. So we did try to limit things like when we got rid of the big most visual change was when we got rid of the different hair styles and stuff like that because we had some crazy styles from Old Bay and stuff, and so we completely just got rid of that to try and stick to like realistic military haircuts.
Yeah, short and ugly.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to ask this because I'm guilty of this. What is your opinion of people who play on your server and record?
It's fine as long as they, for one, we do want to make sure that they have some sort of delay on their, like if they're streaming.
Yeah.
But if they record a video and put it up on YouTube or something like that, that's fine. There's no problem with that at all. As long as they're not doing anything like to power game or meta game, then it's fine with us.
What's your opinion on the plague that happens on some servers with metacoms and meta friends? And I understand that may be a lot more tempting with a strategic sort of game like Colonial Marines.
It's kind of a difficult issue because we don't necessarily want to discourage people from playing with their friends and stuff like that, but we also want to try and keep things fair. So, like right now, if we have proof that you are just metagaming outside of the game, you're gonna receive a ban. Like if we know you're talking about gameplay and stuff like that that's happening at that time through like Discord or something, that's gonna be a ban. But we do also kind of not encourage but allow for like meta friends and stuff through our squads. You can choose what squad you want to be in, so a lot of people will just choose the squad that they know that their friends normally play in and stuff like that.
All right. So in your honest opinion, being now that you're head developer of this thing, what do you think makes your server, above all other things, fun?
Just I think it's probably that we give players a focus, like an objective. They know what they're supposed to be doing. They have like a focus. A lot of people who either they've just done everything they can think of or aren't necessarily super creative people for regular servers, they kind of get bored because there's just so much stuff and there's nothing that's really directing them to do certain things for the most part. Right. So I think our server, a big part of it is like, if you're a Marine, and unless you're playing one of the higher roleplay roles that stay on the ship, you know what your job is. Like, you know exactly what you're doing. And even for the higher roleplay roles, most of them, you have a very specific thing that you're doing. If you're a doctor, most of the time you're performing surgery. But if you're a Marine, your job is to go down to the colony and, you establish your FOB and you shoot aliens.
All right. And now, here's one thing that I have seen on your server. Most of the time, I asked normal Space Station 13 servers about security and the Great Tide. But you have a very unique interplay that will be debated from now till the end of your server, whenever that is. And I wish you many good years. But the one issue I see ever present is that balance between MPs and Marines.
Oh yeah.
And where do you think the key is in maintaining that balance that's fun and playable, but also seeks to enforce the rules not through just hard rules, but role play?
Yeah, so we are actually kind of uh, thinking about different ways that we're going to be changing MPs in the future. Not anything crazy,
Oh,
but yeah, to kind of cater towards a little bit more role play and stuff like that. So we definitely do want to make things a little bit more fun for the players, to where it's not just the MPs are just super powerful, and you get tased, you go to jail, and you're in jail for whatever amount of time. But we also need to make sure that the game isn't like a player doesn't like if a player's super robust, we don't want him to be able to just kind of wreak havoc among the entire ship and ruin the game for 149 other players or whatever.
right.
Like, so we
Have you considered, and this is my terrible attempt to put a thought into your head, but have you considered, instead of tasers, which is very much a leftover from Space Station 13, of just allowing a MP to beat the shit out of somebody with like a baton that's not just a stun prod baton carried over from Bay, but like a collapsible baton, so it's actually breaking bones and so on. Then they
doing like 70s police force
right,
deal.
right, and so then they have to sit in med bay for 20 minutes and think about what they're doing.
That's a pretty funny idea, actually. No, we haven't actually thought about that one.
Because I do know some MPs and they are sadists, so
Mhm. Absolutely.
I think that may not be helpful, but I had to toss that in there.
Yeah. Well, I'll put it on the list of things to consider.
Oh, and rubber bullets.
And rubber bullets, rubber bullets.
Oh god. So you have, I know you've played Space Station 13 since 2008.
Hmm.
What, in your opinion, and I ask this of almost everyone, what in your opinion is the best AI law set and why? And I don't mean from a generic standpoint, but what brings the most chaos or joy to you to see implemented?
So I was always just a big fan of the uh, are you talking like when a trader like goes in, or just anybody and changes the law set?
Any custom law set. Most people
Mm.
say they just like Asimov. They like generic Asimov because they're a science fiction guy and they like watching players try to wrap their brain around it, philosophically speaking, and deconstruct
Right.
it and figure out how to play with it. But
Hmm.
some people favor the, I'm the king of England, the Borgs are my knights and earls,
Yeah,
long live the king.
that's
sort
that's
of
the one that I was gonna say. That one's always pretty funny. I really do like, especially when or an AI that's super creative, an AI player that's super creative can kind of run rampant with whatever rule set it is.
Yeah.
And I think that the medieval stuff is pretty hilarious. I've seen where like an AI has like done a Game of Thrones style type thing and had like houses and everything, and like and considered people in different houses, and which one was the house that would was the AI was up against, and which one was his ally, and everything
That
like that.
now
So,
that's interesting. I like that. I like that a lot.
mhm.
So I know your server doesn't have these per se, unless it's admin bust in, but from your perspective, I can't ask you what's the best antag you've ever seen or the worst antag you've ever seen in your server, but do you have any moments of excellent and or terrible players that just make you laugh to this day?
Yeah, I mean, there's some pretty funny things that happen just in general with or just regular players on our server,
Oh,
where they just
please.
kind of
I want to hear every one of those stories. I really do.
well, everybody knows about Bill Carson, who just does crazy stuff.
I
Uh,
yeah, I he's the only person Well, he's one of 3 people that is not an admin or a head that people have asked me to interview. And the other 2 are George Mellons and Cuban Pete.
Yeah, and he's just he's kind of like our little Cuban Pete. He's pretty silly. You know, whenever he's commander, it's going to be an interesting round.
Well,
and
he is your server mascot because I've seen many disagreements in your Discord, and I am in there. I poke in. I occasionally say, "Man, we just got murdered," but the one thing that is constant. Well, okay, 2 things that are constant. One is people will come up with really bad ideas on how to balance your server. That is just omnipresent. People will be like, well, if aliens had toffee for hands, they wouldn't have to blah, blah, blah. And nobody gives a fuck. But the second thing that's so common, I've noticed, as it goes by, is everyone has a Bill Carson story.
Yep.
So please, I'm sorry for interrupting, but please do tell me your favorite stories from your server that you have observed.
So, so I was there when I actually started. I believe I started playing before Bill Carson, or at least maybe when Bill Carson started becoming a big deal. And I haven't had the pleasure of playing a Bill Carson round in probably a year, mostly because I very rarely get to play an entire round. But and when I do, you know, it's just rolling the dice, and he's just not around.
Yeah.
But I do get to observe some stuff. Like somebody will say Bill Carson's doing, you know, such and such, and I'll jump on the server and see what's going on. And so I'm drawing a blank right now, but he does some really funny stuff with if we have like a admin event where, you know, somebody has like a role play ERT comes in, and he'll always do exactly the opposite of what the admins like want to happen with it. So if the whole event is focused on the ERT or whatever is kind of like malicious and everything, he'll just try and befriend the ERT. I've seen that, and the ERT, and all of a sudden the admins are like, well, what do we do? Like, how do I, you know, go on with this event, because Bill Carson's just thrown it completely out of the original idea and stuff. So it's just that kind of thing.
Yeah, I've seen some amazing things that Bill Carson has done, from sending Marines to one side of the ship and then running into the escape pod on the other side of the ship to...
Yes, that's his personal escape pod. Yep, we thought about actually, for a while we were joking about putting like a plaque on one of them and making it so only Bill Carson could go into it. It was the Bill Carson escape pod.
Yeah, I worked with him when we were morale officers together, and he was the one who actually was like pointing guns in people's faces. He's a funny character, and I think it's a very good sign that a server has the ability to allow players to create these sorts of crazy characters that are memorable. So much so that hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in this community go, oh man, let me tell you the story about Bill Carson.
Yeah, right.
And then a passerby who's a third party would be like, are you really telling with passion a story about a character from a fringe video game that is played by someone else who's famous for dickery? And you're like, yes.
Yep, exactly. It's pretty funny, the kind of stories that can come from players like that.
Yeah, and so the next question I have is, what is the favorite, well, most favorite round you have from your server that you have witnessed, and why?
So, let me think. I think I'm going to go all the way back when I wasn't even a dev at all or anything like that, and it was going back to Ice Colony 1 v1. That map was, like I said before, it was always super difficult, and the Marines lost all the time. And
gee, I wonder why. It's Ice Colony. No, continue. Sorry.
Exactly. And one time I was playing. At the time, it was BO, the bridge officer, and we did decided to form the split push between the 4 squads, where it was 2 squads in one elevator and 2 squads in the other, and we knew the Xenos were all basically down in the underground there, and so we timed it perfectly, and we were able to do this like pincer maneuver or whatever on the Marine or on the Xenos as the Marines, and just kind of squashed them between our entire force, and the game was over in 10 minutes. And that was probably my craziest, and that was after like 4.5 hours or something of playing. It was such a long round, and that was probably my most like just I played it, and I just felt like we did something like crazy compared to just the norm and stuff like that.
That's cool to hear, though, because usually when people think of CM in this community, they go, oh god, it's CM. I'll have to wait 3 rounds for it, or 3 hours, rather, for it to start. But which, it's strange that you can kind of think of things in terms of time in a span of a TG round. So you'll say, oh, it's 3 rounds of TG equals 1 of CM. But to do it in 15 minutes is memorable.
Yep.
So what would you say is the best sort of player for your station/community? And what would be the worst?
So the best sort of player is just somebody that tries to follow the rules as best they can, and likes to role play to, not an obnoxious level or anything, but and just is like really based on communicating with their squad and stuff, and just talking to other players, and really trying to make the game more than just a point and click to kill stuff type game. The worst type of player is probably those players that come in and are like, oh, I'm a crazy person, so I'm gonna shoot my teammates, and my excuse is that I'm a crazy person.
So low random.
Yeah, exactly.
What is your favorite event on CM and why?
Favorite event is probably just Infection, the game mode, just because it's just completely different from the regular gameplay. Like, you still have, I guess, that whole, you can technically become the bad guy and everything, but it's just kind of way cooler, like the different stages of the zombies, and then how in the end it's just chaos.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm gonna ask this. I've debated on asking this, but what is the win rate on Infection versus Aliens?
I actually don't know. That's a good question, but from just what I know of, I don't know the specific number, but from what I know of just the game mode, it's definitely like heavily in favor of the Infection. It's like probably 90% Infection.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I've never seen a Marine win that I can remember, but 600 and something episodes do blend together. I want to say that I didn't make things better when I was given the vials and kind of handed it out as super funtonium. But I don't think that the odds have ever been anywhere near good.
Yeah.
So what is your least favorite event? Which run thing do you hate so much on CM that you're just like, why is this here? Or it's aggravating?
I just don't like, sometimes some events can just get out of hand, and the thing is, I don't want to really say, because the events are the imagination of our admins and stuff like that, right? And so and sometimes they just try things that are just bad. They just end up being terrible. Like,
okay, so of these experiments, which would you say is the olive loaf of the meats?
I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, is the thing.
Okay.
So
okay.
I don't really want to say.
All right.
But in general, like things that are just super low RP and not a whole lot of thought to them, and that kind of just spiral out of control is what I'm just going to say in generic terms.
Okay. What is your favorite role to play on your server?
favorite role is probably specialist. The
Which specialist?
I'd say the pyro spec.
Oh,
Just
fuck
because
yeah.
that was my newest spec that I put together, and I know that fire is horrible and everything right now, but it's still fun
Yeah,
compared to
I love
a lot
fire.
of the other stuff. Yep.
Praise Zorg. So, what is your least favorite role on your server?
Least favorite role is probably going to be probably doctor, which is kind of weird because when I played Bay, I almost exclusively played doctor and stuff like that. But I just don't. It's too much pressure on CM for me. I don't like it.
Well, yeah, because you look at it in terms of how many bodies can I put back into the field before they come up here and kill us.
Exactly.
So, why so often are our prayers never answered?
I don't know really. There's only a few people that I believe it's only admins that can actually. No, moderators can also respond to prayers, but that's kind of Rawls' side of things is the whole like permissions and everything, and staff management all that. But I I would probably say just because a lot of the prayers are kind of you just see the same thing over and over again, and it you really don't kind of get tired of responding the exact same way every time, especially when you're getting like uh, you know 50 prayers a game. It's normally like please God don't let me die or please whatever don't let me die and stuff like that, and there's nothing super uh, crazy about it. I have seen where if something's really special, like if lately when we made it so that you can put the dog tags on the memorials and stuff like that, and people will pray like in front of that. That sometimes the admins will kind of respond to that because that's kind of good role play and stuff.
Right, right. So, also, in that same vein, why do Wayland Utani officials hate Randolph P. Checkers when he sends them 20 faxes?
uh, because we get spammed with like our chat logs just go insane. We get like 20 messages that say that we just got 20 faxes, and then we have the
Well, yeah, but
fax text there.
it's important because Checkers is looking after the Pancake Factory that
Ah,
that also, of course, was the cover for the secret weapons experiment, and also the pancake supply in the sector has been disrupted, and that we need to get PR on this stat.
well, I'll have to put out a notice to our to the heads to be more accommodating
So,
to checkers.
well, I don't want any favoritism. I just think I think it's funny when I'll start writing these weird. They start off as normal faxes, and if I don't get one, I think it's phishing. So I will put better bait on there, and I will say I'm sorry for blowing up the office Christmas party.
We do love seeing the creative stuff. It does. We'll talk about it in like MSA or whatever, and kind of be laughing about it. And sometimes we'll reward the player or whatever just for being so
Yeah, no,
creative.
it's two part. If you, I get what you're saying, because if you go in there and you go, all right, it's day 483 and we're on this patrol and I need some orders here, and you're like, you know your job, shut the fuck up.
Right.
Or if someone's like, I think I saw a scary thing, I need a kill team here immediately, stat. They're gonna be like, fuck off. But
Hmm.
what you're saying is more creative responses may get acknowledged, perhaps.
Exactly.
So, when you play Space Station 13, do you only play on this server? Or do you play on others?
Nowadays, yeah, I actually haven't played on another Space Station 13 server in at least a year and a half, which I believe the last one was Goon.
All right.
Which I was never like a super regular player of Goon, but I always liked jumping on there every once in a while just because everything was so wacky compared to everything else.
Yeah, it is kind of a cartoon.
Oh, I did play the Fallout server too a little bit once. but then they had their whole
they
crazy drama.
They have imploded and built themselves up several times,
Mhm.
and I don't know when it's going to be up for long and if stable. So,
Yep.
in your opinion, on your server, what is the best map? And if you say ice, I'm not going to be happy. Don't do it.
I mean, I don't know what to tell you, because okay, so objectively,
As a player,
LV is probably the best map. Yeah.
All right.
As a player, LV is probably the best map. If you're playing as a Xeno, Ice Colony is probably the best map. But so if you're a Xeno main, go for Ice Colony. But
there's a good
otherwise.
follow-in question. Do you play on the Marine side or the Alien side more?
I guess the Alien side. But I play both, and yeah, as opposed to the popular thought that devs are Xeno biased. Yeah, but I think I like the simplicity of the Xeno side. It's way easier to play, I think, mechanic wise than Marines.
I understand that, especially with pain crit, but I also understand that from a thematic perspective, where when people talk about the movie Jaws, they don't talk about the guys on the boat.
Right.
You have a very interesting bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a question I ask of every single admin, who has played Spaceman for a long time, as I know you have. And this is a very important question, so I need you to think on this. Clown or mime?
Mime. Yeah, mime.
Whoa.
I know.
Whoa. Okay, why?
Well, the server that I played on back in the day, they only really allowed mime regularly. The clown was like a special thing because they thought it was too silly. That was when I first started playing. It was the Bay-based server, and I just kind of like also that mime has like the invisible wall powers and stuff. I always thought that was pretty funny. Like, obviously the banana is great for clown, and you can get into crazy things and be a meme and all that. But I kind of like with mime how he was just he was less silly, but more he could kind of do wreak just as much havoc. Also, not talking was kind of funny.
Well,
just being like a silent antagonizer as opposed to like a go in and honk and trip people.
I understand. So what you're saying is the humor is more dimensional than honk honk you fell down.
yeah, exactly.
All right. Being that you are willing to speak to me at length about CM,
Mm-hmm.
I would be remiss if I did not ask the following question, at least with some understanding. There is no server in Space Station 13 that has not had its share of drama, big and small, that has not had its share of changes, big and small, that has not had its share of madness, big and small. With the recent history of Colonial Marines and some of the drama that has been talked about both on the Reddit and in the community and in forums, do you have any input or thoughts on that? At least with how it approaches or impacts your server?
Well, it's been a wild ride. CM has been in the spotlight for drama recently. And with the whole, I mean, just saying straight out, like originally the Pewee situation and then the more recent APOP situation, and both, of course, were heads and everything, and it was a very kind of difficult time, both times, for CM in general. I think that it just comes with the territory, that the drama, where if you're one of the larger servers, you just have a lot more scrutiny. There's chance for but just the chance of drama occurring is just astronomically higher. And there's, just being the one of the larger servers, there's a lot of people that don't like us, and there's a lot of people that like us. So the people that don't like us, they're going to try and stir up drama if they're that sort of person. Because I mean, you have your dramatic people that like us too, and they'll be just as dramatic, but in a more
supportive way.
Positive way. Yeah, supportive way, exactly.
So, do you think that the reason CM is the center of drama is either because of, one, your primacy eclipsing pretty much all the other servers, or do you think it's because that perhaps it's because your code is not widely available?
It definitely is partially because the code isn't widely available. I mean, that's just one of the drama topics in general, is just, the whole licensing stuff and all that. And so yes, definitely for the closed source thing. But then for the other stuff, it's just, I think it's just because, I mean, there's no denying that both of those times the drama was just very juicy drama. Like,
of course, all drama has to be juicy, otherwise it's not carried. It's a little
exactly
sweet morsel of something that breaks up the tedium.
Exactly, but it also came from, everybody knew who Fuey was. Everybody knew who Apop was, and that at least everybody on like the subreddit and stuff like that. You know those names, so all of a sudden they're huge. When something happens.
Do you think this drama is fueled because it's drama itself? Or do you think this drama is fueled because someone feels wronged by these persons and is willing to do anything they can to undermine their existence in the community or outside of it?
I think it's kind of a case by case. So I do think that the people that kind of instigate the drama and stuff, they definitely feel like they're in the right, of course, in all situations. And so it comes from that, but I also do think that sometimes it goes too far. Like even with the Fuey stuff, that like the memes were crazy, like for days.
Yeah, it was the leave behind every shit post meme, and
exactly. But I mean, that was we were the ones that kind of started that one, because we did the investigation on that, and then with the
was it true that it was that many alts?
Yeah, it was true.
Jesus.
Yeah, I was actually the one to message the admin and everything, and it was originally we suspected 18, and I sent the admin 18 names, and he said that only 16 of them were banned.
So almost all of them.
Yeah, and one of those, of course, was Fuey's main known account. So there it goes.
It's interesting, though. I have to say this. It's interesting, though, that once all of these things are addressed, Colonial Marine still stands.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's just because me and Rawl didn't decide to just give it up entirely and like let when both of these things happened or something, and Apop when it was the Fuey thing originally, and we decided to keep going with it, and also because the staff in general, like, we didn't have people leave over either of them, really. Like, the staff was very supportive the entire time of the server continuing, regardless of anybody's opinions on both of the drama issues. We just kept going. We're very dedicated, the entire staff and the like devs and regular mentors through Admin Plus.
So the community withstands these things because regardless of all of the things, you love what you have made.
Exactly. It's all about the game. It's not about all this drama and stuff like that. We just want to play the game. We want to play 2D Spacemen together.
I wholeheartedly agree. So as we've reached the end of the interview, do you have anything you want to communicate to the Space Station 13 community? Shoutouts, apocalyptic warnings, requests, or so on. The time, sir, is yours.
I just want to say that, at least for specifics for our server and stuff like that, for development and everything that players say, we hear you. If we can't respond to you or don't respond to you, it's only because there's so many of you. And if I could sit down and respond to every single one of our players' concerns and just type out something, I would. It's just that there's no time in the day. There's not enough time in the day. But stuff with a lot of people are concerned with how Xeno balance is right now. We're looking at it. We've been looking at it since it was released. Every single big update that we have, we're always just on top of it for a while. I know it takes a long time to get where we want it, and I know that sometimes it may seem like we don't know what we're doing, or we are going the wrong direction with the game, and we see all of those posts, and we take them into consideration and all that, because maybe we are wrong, in what we do. So I just want to make it clear that everybody has a voice when it comes to the development of the game, and that whether we turn it down or agree with it, you have been heard. When it comes to the community in general, like all of Space Station 13, I hope that we can get away from all this drama and just play the game together. And I think that at least me and Raul in general aren't very public figures and stuff like that. So I think that when it comes to big drama, like a head doing anything, I don't think that there's going to be any issues in the future. And we are trying to move forward to minimize drama and stuff. There's been crazy rule changes, like a complete turnover on rules and everything that Raul is striving for, just to try and make it so that players feel that everything is fair and there's not even a need for anything drama related in the future. So that's really it. I hope that you guys all have fun playing our game.
All right, thank you for your time. This has been a Space Station 13 interview. Vote and subscribe at your own peril.